Hi guys, just a quick update on the Revell German staff car, the G4. I've made some progress. First of all, just to give you an idea of how big this thing is. It's sitting next to a Panther and a Kabul wagon. Move around to the side, hopefully without falling out of the chair. As you can see, it's big. Alright, move them aside for now. This model has been more than problematic. I watched QDC build an ICM version of this, and I noticed it's exactly the same. So one company's built it, and either Revell or ICM has reboxed the other company's product. Because the parts look exactly the same. I don't know if the instructions are any better with ICM, but you're still going to run into some of the issues. I'll give you an idea. The frame, which could have been made in one piece, is several separate pieces, and your problems start really early on. Where is it? Step 1. Okay. This part here right now has a slight flange on it, so it does hook up properly with your engine block. What it doesn't have is any sort of guide tab to lock it into a perfect 90 degrees. That's a problem later on when you get to actually assembling the frame, because it's part of what holds the frame together on either side. So if you're slightly off, that one's not terrible, it just means the engine's going to sit at an angle versus the frame. But it gives you an idea of what you're up against. And one of the problems you have is you're making attachments. You're attaching cross beams way back in step 9. And if you don't get them right, and the guideposts are not great, you've really got to try and work hard to get everything to 90 degrees or square. And if you're slightly off, it's going to show up in the frame. Same thing with these. These are running board supports, and they have a lot of play. You can get a couple of different angles on them, and there's no indication of what the actual correct angle is. And when you go to put the running board on later, you'll find out you're not at the right angle. The other problem along with the frame is the rear axle. Again, this is kind of crazy because you're working without great guide pins. That's the front, where's the side? You're putting together the two differentials. Then you're supposed to put together the leaf spring suspension. The problem is this part here, C27, and its equivalents, are actually your attachment points for the wheels. And all that's holding them on are two little contact pins to the side of the end of the leaf spring. And you're trying, these of course will move side to side. These attachment points aren't clear. This little nub here, and real close if I can, this nub here is concentric, it's off center. And the drawing's not clear really as to whether it's more to the left or to the right, and it's the same with the slot it goes into. It's concentric, it's not centered. So you can actually put this together off center, so you've got to rush through it and try and use these sort of end caps, let's call them that, to square everything up, all while glue's drying. Then once you've got all that done, you're supposed to try and get these together, and where did it go? Again, you're putting the two differentials together with the drive shaft in between and hoping you get that square. I didn't get it quite square. I'm kind of annoyed with that. And what else? I tried, my hope was to have gotten the frame and sort of motor, everything else together, and painted that and then painted the body. It's not really possible. because early on you've got to put the steering wheel shaft through to the frame. They indicate later on that the body should just slide over this, and that's garbage. It won't. You've got to go in at a severe angle and really wiggle. I put this in separately into the body first, and it's just hanging loose. I didn't even really attach it to the frame. It's at the right height because there's a match to this diamond shape on the dashboard, but that's wider than the gap in the body that they've provided through the firewall. Same thing with this. This is part of the bodywork, this little panel here, and there's no real indication on how this is supposed to properly fit on the frame. Same thing if we keep going. The body itself went together reasonably okay. I had a little bit of fitment issue there, and I'm willing to live with that. Where else are we? The gas tank assembly, which is this piece, shows up later. Again, was one of those pieces that kept me from doing, body and frame painting, or at least priming. Where does it go on? I'll show it here. That's actually the underbody or the bottom of the body that you're attaching it to. It's only very partially attached to the frame, and because everything ended up off center, I actually had to cut that spar out to get the gas tank to fit up tight and snug. And again, the front fenders, it's rather a loose fit. They sort of slot in. There's very little contact. You're gluing it on the side, or to the side. And then you've got to deal with the consequences of their sloppy fit on those support brackets. I'll actually get to the model itself now. Because the attachment points are so strange, this is the second wheel it's popped off. It's not a big deal to put it back on, but you can see the contact point that the wheel eventually mounts to. It's a tiny little pin. That's not good. It's a tiny little pin there, and the tiny little pin there. And that's it. They've made the frame of this, the underbody, far too complex, especially for a Revell kit. And while the inside's nice, it's not spectacular. As I said before, I've replaced the grab handles with wire because I broke too many of them. And the fitment issues extended up to the front. It's not clear how to attach things, with the frame being slightly off center. By the time I got it on, again, you're supposed to put together the hood, the sides, and the radiator, and then drop that once it's dried on. But to assume that you're going to get the right angles back here is foolish. At the very least, you'd have to glue up those 4 parts and then sort of dry fit it across the back. So I've had to use some filler to close up the gaps. There's another one up there I'm not going to bother with. And even on the body, some of the filler was used down there. That's all gaps that were in the body. Just because the instructions they seem simple enough, but when you actually get into it, like I said, this bottom differential or rear, you're trying to put so many pieces together. If you can't get it to exactly 90 degrees somehow, it's all going to be out of kilter. And it is. You can see how far forward that wheel is. It's actually touching the wheel well. Oops. On this side, the wheels fit a little bit more naturally, although that rear wheel is too far forward. Fortunately, this isn't going to be a centerpiece. I don't think for anybody it would be. But in the diorama, it's not going to be a centerpiece when I'm done with it. so it'll go mostly unnoticed, so I can live with it. But I'm so annoyed with this that I actually was considering going and getting the ICM version, and I found QDC's video and noticed it's the same model. So I would just have the same problems. I would just be slightly wiser to them now. But that rear wheel's got to go back on. The interior is done. All it's missing is stuff like headlights. The spare tires have to go on here, and there's little wells. Headlights and door handles. I've left all that off deliberately because, as you can see, I've been doing quite a bit of filling and sanding and handling it, and anything on the outside is going to get snapped off in no time flat. There's our general. Again, it's an interesting model, or an interesting subject. I won't be building one of these again, that's for sure. And certainly not as a standalone piece. So, that's where I'm at with it just now. Have a good night, guys.